Okay, so I'm gonna try to blast through this question as quickly as possible. But any advice for proper leg training? And the first word that comes into mind is time and attention. Time and time again, I always see people with like really big lifts, and I have bigger legs than them normally. So they're out squatting me, they're hitting 315, they're hitting whatever on a back squat or 405 for repetitions, but their legs don't really look the part. The issue is that they're just going for these really low rep ranges, which will, yeah, have hypertrophic effects, but not necessarily on everybody. So if you're just slamming a couple of sets and reps and you're not feeling your legs throughout the movements, then you're probably not building any mind muscle connection. It's just like when you are doing a bicep curl. It's the easiest one to feel that mind muscle connection and see it because it's right in front of you and you curl something and you get it. But if you aren't feeling and absorbing and embracing that pain throughout the range of motion when you're doing a certain exercise and you don't really feel your legs expanding or getting blood flow, then that set doesn't really matter unless you're performance based like a power lifter. But if you're looking for hypertrophic muscularity, you're gonna want to slow down your sets. But your range of motion, you have to hit depth. So you're looking for going below parallel, unless like you just want to be all quads. Like if you want to be all quads, then quarter squat all day. But range of motion, that's where you're gonna build your tree trunk legs. So that's where you're gonna get your glutes. That's where you're gonna get your hamstrings. You might get some calf recruitment there if you have good genetics. And then also your reps and sets and loads. So reps, sets, and loads are a little bit different. Just not necessarily different. You want to be in the low rep ranges sometimes. You want to be in the high rep ranges sometimes. You want to be in the middle rep ranges, which could be your 3 to 5 repetitions, your 8 to 12 repetitions. And when I say high, I mean high. Like you can go well over 20 to 30 repetitions or 50 if we're talking about steps and lunges. And you can even, go for a burner set, which I've put people through and put myself through, which is awful, but just 5 minutes of walking lunges straight without break. It's brutal. But also your tempos, slowing them down on concentrics. Concentrics are going to be the ones where you're going through the positive part of the movement and you're trying to blow right through it. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you still make gains that way. But for people that don't really feel their legs when they're doing these type of movements, you can just slow down a concentric to about a 3 seconds on an upward path, and people are going to fizzle out a lot sooner, which is okay sometimes because that will build that mind muscle connection. And like slowing down your eccentric, so 3 second eccentric and like a 2 second pause should be pretty good for any or all movements, but they're gonna build a lot of time in the gym, so just use them accordingly. Don't find yourself using like 8 second eccentrics because you'll hate your life unless you want to do that. But a combination of all these things and using supersets and trisets and getting creative. If you have a certain muscle group that builds more than the other, then that probably works for you. So maybe throwing that into your leg regimen, you'll probably see more gains. But also seated and standing calf raises, you need one variation of a knee bent movement to build your calves, and you need one with a straight leg movement in order to build your calves. And a lot of times I don't see people doing for calf training is like a single leg calf exercise. A lot of people will be significantly weaker on one side. And yeah, getting a pump and things like that, and sometimes going heavy. But there's a little bone behind the ankle that we don't want to piss off. So just make sure that you're cycling when you have heavy days on calf training and when you have lighter days, and then limiting the load that you put onto that bone by also adding tempo. So you have to cut your weight significantly. But yeah, also building your glutes. A lot of men will neglect glute training because they're kind of embarrassed to get into a hip thrust position, and then they'll like shame the hip thrust for some reason. But when you build your glutes, you're gonna start seeing a lot more blood flow into the rest of your legs. So just make sure that you're doing your glute training. No, you don't necessarily need to do a donkey kickback or a cable pull through through, or you could do a cable pull through, but a cable kickback for days, no, but you can do some hip thrusts and that'll probably alleviate any hip pain or any lower back pain that you might be experiencing. But also building the thighs. So you're gonna build most of your thighs from your leg extensions and your hamstring curls, and just making sure that you're in a caloric surplus, so that your legs have enough calories to grow. And if you're upper body dominant, just make sure that you're feeding not just the upper body, but eating more in excess so you can feed the lower body. And yeah. Oh, don't neglect your hamstrings because you can't see them. They're behind there, but they make a big part of your legs. You get some horse hamstrings when you start building them a lot, and the way you're gonna build your hamstrings in that 6 to 10 rep range and burnouts and drop sets on the lying hamstring curl. But two things to watch out for are just your knees and your back. When you're training, legs, these are the first to go. So if your knees are getting pissed off, try a little wider stance. Try to make a more hip dominant squat. So leveraging your hips and your lower back to be utilized over your knees. And then if you're feeling a lower back strain when you're doing a lot of these leg exercises, build up your abs and build up your glutes and do low back friendly exercises like a belt squat or even just a hamstring curl. Sometimes I'll choose a seated hamstring curl because it's going to have a bigger limiting factor on your lower back than a prone hamstring curl, so just like a lying down hamstring curl. And then you can blast through split squats normally if you have lower back issues, and you can load up front squats, even if it's a goblet squat, just to ease your lower back. Those would be my suggestions to properly building your legs.